This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. Park Chan-wook's latest film, No Other Choice, has some of the most inventive transitions I've seen in years. That transition was so smooth I almost missed it on my first watch. This cheeky one circles back later in a beautifully layered and frankly lavish manner. And this one, it's just cool. And that's before we even talk about the zooms and dolly shots. Take a look at this scene between Mansu, the protagonist, and his wife Miri. The catch here is that both of them are hiding something from each other. The two have spent the last 24 hours tending to their own affairs, consumed by their respective pursuits, before finally reuniting at the end of a long night in a loving embrace. The scene begins with Miri counting down from 60 in response to Mansu's request to stay together for 1 minute. To focus on their emotional distance, the camera dollies out with the countdown, making the hug feel smaller and less secure. But within seconds, Mansu makes another request. Now, here's where things get interesting. Instead of letting the scene play out, Park Chan-wook shifts to a dolly in, reversing the established emotional undertone, rebuilding intimacy, and emphasizing Mansu's wish to hold on to the moment. It's no doubt a visually striking scene, but its purpose extends beyond mere surface appeal. For one, it reveals the position of the characters in the relationship. If you consider the timing of the dolly in and out, and to whom they each belong, you will see that the dolly out is used for the character whose secret has led her to become emotionally withdrawn from the relationship, whereas the dolly in is used for the character whose secret stems from his affection toward his partner. This naturally emphasizes the performative quality of their relationship, making everything feel detached and constrained. Zoom, on the other hand, is a naturally uncomfortable visual technique. They compress space, engineer perception, and displace physical movement without changing the world itself. Consider the film's opening sequence, whose main goal is to convey a sense of pretense. While there are other tricks that help develop this feeling, like the deceptive point of view shot or the vertical dolly shot that visually separates the family, the zoom is what dictates the color of the family space, painting it as constructed rather than natural. Eventually, the sequence wraps up with a familiar hug, but here you're greeted with a slow push-in on Mansu's face, with cutaway inserts of other family members that place him at the center of everything. This turns the others as mere components of his private perspective, his ideal self, or perhaps a thin veneer of manufactured perfection. As the camera slowly pulls out from the family, and as the day turns into night, you realize that the moment is but an idealized fantasy, destined to fall apart. Voila. Zooms, dolly shots, and transitions. Great. But that's not what we're here to talk about, because the most interesting role of the zoom, and in fact of almost every visual technique in No Other Choice, lies in establishing and maintaining distance between the characters and the audience. No Other Choice follows Yu Mansu, a middle-class man who, after being fired from his paper manufacturing job of 25 years, decides to kill off his competitors to regain his position and restore his status. Although the narrative remains closely aligned with Mansu, the film's visual techniques preserve a careful emotional remove, ensuring the audience is never fully attached to or repulsed by his actions. The vertical dolly shots remove the audience from the scene and everything within by showing an objective view of the film world. The recurring shots featuring mirrors accentuate the duality and separation of characters, along with the film's voyeuristic quality to reinforce the viewer-character divide. Conversely, there are elements that narrow the gap, like this awesome J-cut, where the sound of the thunder from the upcoming scene bleeds into the strobing dance floor. After a tense confrontation between Mansu and his wife Miri, the two spaces begin to feel emotionally continuous. The J-cut indicates that the dance hall now takes on a storm-like quality, while Mansu's inner turmoil, guilt, jealousy, and loss of control is represented by the storm itself. There are numerous examples of similar visual associations in No Other Choice that serve to bring the audience closer to Mansu by exaggerating his emotional state. But the most compelling effects arise from techniques that deliberately sustain the unstable distance. At its most basic, the film uses swing shots as a visual narrator, mirroring the audience's ambivalence toward Mansu, and at times that of other characters.
본 거야? 본 것 같은 거야.
Is he justified or not? Good or bad? The swing shots carry our oscillating judgment throughout the film. A similar but more assertive force comes from the film's use of light, often read symbolically as the sun or as light in its various forms. There are numerous scenes where the sun acts as an unavoidable light of truth, a divine force that exposes everything. At a more fundamental level, this light simply falls on spaces seeking absolute truth. In other cases, it constantly confronts those attempting to escape reality. At his first interview, Mansu fails utterly to evade the sunlight. But after successfully getting rid of his competitors and fully suppressing his sense of morality, he is finally able to block the light, using his own sun. Speaking of, there's also this scene where Mansu and his son Siwon literally escape the light through the camera that crosses the axis mid-conversation. Notice how the scene also frequently cuts to shadows, reducing the two to abstract shapes, a visual idea of violence and criminal influence. The clash between the real Mansu and his shadow version echoes the earlier swing shots. And of course, even when the sun is absent, light persists in the moon, in lamps, and flashlights, continuing to expose the characters in spaces devoid of sunlight.
상대방을 똑바로 보면서 그렇게 하는 건 진짜 어려워.
Lastly, there's the film's circulation of words, actions, and associations between characters that blurs the boundaries between them and makes them seem one and the same. This is particularly evident from Mansu, who has been performative from the very start, as suggested from his palm notes. You'll often hear him recycling lines of dialogue from others to propel his plan, defend his stance, argue against others, and loop, I guess. It also manifests in repeated actions and misrecognitions between characters, further weakening their individuality.
괜찮아요. 완전히 괜찮아요. 오징어 씨.
고맙습니다. 오진호 선생님.
The resulting loss of character distinction disrupts the viewer's ability to judge them, since actions and words can no longer be reliably attributed to those who perform them. I'm going to leave you with a sequence that not only effectively captures the ideas examined, but further develops the leads and themes while merging identities and reminding the viewers of the maintained distance. First, some context. Mansu is at his last target, Sunchu's cabin on a remote island, digging a hole to partially bury and immobilize him. Meanwhile, back at home, Miri hears from Siwon that Mansu may have committed a murder and disposed of a body. The sequence begins by cross-cutting between Mansu and Miri shoveling at two different locations, gradually intensifying into parallel editing that conflates their movements. Through match-on-action transitions, the film creates deliberate misdirection, combining them into a single, seemingly shared process. And since everything is framed and staged as if they're digging the same hole from opposite sides, a collision appears imminent. In the meantime, we get a separate dream sequence from Siwon. We didn't get to examine it, but a bonsai symbolizes controlled growth, directly reflecting Mansu's actions. He's not merely committing a crime, he is controlling, containing, and shaping reality. As with the use of light, shadows, and parallel editing, Siwon churning into Mansu achieves a similar overlap of their identities. Mansu churning on the light signals his desire to exercise authority, or at least that is how it appears to Siwon. And Siwon shining light onto his father's face conveys his wish to know the objective truth. The fisheye version of Siwon's perspective at that moment frames Mansu as something overwhelming, threatening, and inescapable. With a fitting match cut, Siwon's wish is visually realized by Miri discovering the buried body. But just as she reaches for it, we cut to Mansu brushing dirt off Suncher's face. The intentionally misleading cut produces a moment of unsettling recognition that even with the truth exposed, Miri may choose to bury it and move on. As was suggested by the editing, there may be more similarities than differences between searching for the truth and concealing it. In digging for too long, they ended up on the same side, and Miri becomes part of the problem as well.
그렇게 열심히 살지 말지.
Apart from the fact that no other choice should really be read as it can't be helped, it is blatantly obvious that there absolutely were other choices to be made. But 어쩔 수가 없다, which was intentionally stylized as a single word, is about the attitude toward an uncontrollable situation, negotiating and optimizing your response to minimize tension. You may call it rationalization or weakness, but to some it will be responsibility and strength. As idiosyncratic yet human characters moving through a patchwork of equally curious experiences, they are only trying to provide new perspectives for the audience. And if you can't accept that, well, you probably had no other choice, right? Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, thank you very much for watching if you are still here. It's been a year and some more. I was on medical leave and now I'm back. Really appreciate all those who cared and waited. I love you all. I knew I had to talk about No Other Choice before anything else, but there were so many things I could talk about, as is with any Park Chan-wook films, that I had to narrow down on a specific topic and really try hard not to go off tangent. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about it down the road because there were a lot of fun stuff that I could potentially delve into. Now, what helped me narrow down on a specific topic was revisiting Park Chan-wook's previous film, Decision to Leave, and comparing it to this one, how they connect visually, thematically, etc., which I was only able to do thanks to Mubi, the sponsor for today's video. Mubi is an online curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe, ranging from works of iconic directors to emerging actors. It's a great way to watch films you already love and an even better way to discover new films you haven't seen before. Like I said, for this video, I watched Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave on Mubi, and alongside it, watched many other films in Mubi selections, which helped me tremendously with my research and script writing. And of course, I'm currently in Canada, so your movie selections might look different depending on your location, but rest assured, Mubi always has a carefully picked selection of works that are more than worth watching. Better yet, right now you can try Mubi free for 30 days by using my link at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. That's mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. So definitely check it out, and I'll see you again in the next one.